Welcome to The Explainer. Today, we're going to break down a massive global health crisis, pneumonia. But we're going to do it by telling you a story, the story of one little girl's fight for every single breath.
So, picture this. It's December 19th, 2022. A 2-year-old girl, who we'll just call Miss VA, arrives at a hospital in Ghana. She isn't walking in, she's being carried on her mother's back. She's weak, she's struggling to breathe, she's in serious trouble.
And her story, her whole journey from that first terrifying moment through diagnosis and treatment, well, it's a powerful window into a disease that affects millions of people every single year. So let's dive right in. All right, so let's start with Miss VA. Her mom said she was a totally normal, active, healthy toddler. But then, literally overnight, everything changed. One day she's fine, the next she has this awful cough, a really high fever, and this is the scary part. She can barely breathe. Her parents, they saw these really alarming signs, and they rushed her to the hospital. And the doctors saw it right away. The high temperature, the way she was working so hard for every breath, that cough that just wouldn't quit, and she had completely lost her appetite. Their diagnosis came quickly: severe pneumonia. So what in the world was happening inside her tiny body?
To really get what Miss VA was up against, we've got to take a closer look at what pneumonia actually does to the lungs.
At its core, pneumonia is an infection, and that infection causes inflammation in your lung tissue. Now, think about the tiny little air sacs in your lungs. They're called alveoli. This is where the magic happens, where oxygen gets into your blood. Well, with pneumonia, those little sacs fill up with fluid or even pus, and it makes it incredibly difficult for oxygen to get where it needs to go. And you can see here what's happening. The end result is always the same: inflammation and fluid buildup. Those air sacs get clogged up. It's like trying to breathe through a wet sponge. And that is exactly why Miss VA was fighting so hard for every single breath. So Miss VA's story is heartbreaking, right? But here's the thing. It is not a one-off. Not even close. Let's pull back and look at the global picture, because the numbers, well, they're absolutely staggering. Get this. According to the Global Burden of Disease Study, pneumonia is the single biggest infectious killer of adults and children in the world. In just one recent year, it took 2.5 million lives. Let that sink in for a second. That's a life lost every 13 seconds. And of course, it's the most vulnerable who get hit the hardest. Of those 2.5 million deaths, over 600,000 were children under 5 years old. And what's really gut-wrenching is that malnutrition plays a role in a shocking 60% of these deaths. So here's the point. This is a treatable, preventable illness that is still having a truly devastating impact around the globe. But this is also a story of hope. Let's go back to that hospital in Ghana where a dedicated medical team was working around the clock to save Miss VA's life. Her story shows us that this is a battle we can absolutely win. Her treatment was fast and it was targeted. I mean, look at this timeline. After just one day, her fever started to break. By day 3, she was breathing so much better. And after only 5 days in the hospital, she was stable enough to go home to her family. So how did they do it? Well, it was a multi-pronged attack, and you can see it broken down right here. They used an antibiotic, cefuroxime, to fight the actual infection. A nebulizer with salbutamol opened up her airways. Paracetamol brought that high fever down, and a cough syrup helped clear the fluid from her lungs. This just goes to show we have the tools to effectively beat pneumonia. Okay, so that raises a pretty big question, doesn't it? If we have treatments that work this well, why are millions of people still dying? What's being done on a global scale to stop this? Let's zoom out one last time. Well, groups like the Every Breath Counts Coalition have a really clear 4-part game plan. 1. Vaccinate. Protect kids from the start. 2. Nutrition. A well-fed child has a stronger immune system. It's as simple as that. 3. Clean air. Reduce exposure to air pollution. And 4. Treat the sick. Make sure everyone has access to a quick diagnosis and the kind of life-saving medicines Miss VR received. Now, is it easy? No way. There are huge hurdles, but the framework itself is crystal clear. And this brings us right back to where we started, to one little girl, one family, and one fight for life that really represents millions of others. Her fight was over because her parents acted quickly, and because modern medicine was available, she made a full recovery. She got to go home. She got to keep being a kid. Miss VA's survival is proof that we can beat pneumonia. Her story shows us how severe the threat is, but it also shows us the power of our solutions. The challenge now is making her happy ending the reality for every child, every adult, everywhere. Her story proves the question isn't if we can end this crisis, but if we'll choose to.